MonsterVerse Mania. We were all a part of it, especially here on this channel. This channel was like, that was what this is entirely built on. MonsterVerse Mania, it was a beautiful thing, and in my opinion, MonsterVerse Mania peaked with Godzilla King of the Monsters, and in particular, before the movie even came out. In my opinion, MonsterVerse Mania peaked on December 1st, 2018 at Tokyo Comic-Con. And I want to talk about that. What's up, everybody? D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla King of the Monsters discussion video. A nice little throwback. Before we continue this channel's growth, it's doing so well lately. I really appreciate you guys hyping me up. It's so much fun. Please subscribe now and help us get to 101,000 subscribers on the road to 101,954. We're trying to get 1954 for just a second, and then you guys gotta keep subscribing. I don't know why I wanted to do this, I just did. It's just been something that's lived in my head for years. I made a community post about it a couple months ago, and people were all over that community post agreeing with me, or some people were disagreeing, which I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. When do you think MonsterVerse Mania peaked? And before you answer, you had to be a part of this MonsterVerse Mania before you can really weigh in and say like GXK was the peak hype for the MonsterVerse. If that's your thoughts, you better have been a part of the 2018 era to be able to say that. I'm a very nostalgic person. I'm so nostalgic, I think about the past all the time, and one thing I often think about is just how exciting of a time period it was to be a Godzilla fan before Godzilla King of the Monsters. The lead up to King of the Monsters, it will stand the test of time for me. It stands above all other eras as the peak of my MonsterVerse fandom and the peak of my Godzilla fandom. It's not to say I'm less of a Godzilla fan now than I was back in 2018, I don't think that's the case, but it is to say the way I felt about Godzilla was so much more pure and excited and wholesome than it is now. I know I'm not the only one. I know so many of you guys feel that as well. And sure, I think it's gonna be like a generational thing. You know, every generation's gonna have their own peak MonsterVerse fandom and peak Godzilla fandom, but for me and so many of you guys who grew up with me on this channel, it will always be the King of the Monsters era. I don't think it was just the fact that we were young either. We were living in a pretty epic time. Late 2018 and early 2019, it was a wonderful time to be a Godzilla fan. I know people throw that phrase around all the time, and it's still, I would say, a wonderful time to be a Godzilla fan, but it really was a wonderful time for us on the internet back then. It was a beautiful time period of the anime trilogy, which maybe you didn't like, but it was Godzilla content that we were being fed with every couple months. The Planet Eater had just come out, and for me and so many others, it was the absolute highlight of that trilogy and really tied the whole thing together. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters was right around the corner. And I'm telling you, we didn't know how special of a time that was, and we didn't know how special of a movie that was. We had no clue how special of a moment in fandom history we were a part of, and just how exciting things were. It's not to say that things aren't still exciting. Again, I do think it depends a lot on like your age, and especially like how wary you are of the tricks of the MonsterVerse at this point. But for many of us, this was the absolute height of it. But again, I don't think it's just that, because this truly was the end of the age of the unknown. Let me explain. There are kind of two different eras when I think about Godzilla King of the Monsters, and maybe it's because I was so entrenched in covering it, but if I feel this way, maybe some of you will as well, or maybe me pointing it out will make you realize it. For me, there very much is before Tokyo Comic-Con 2018 in December, and after Tokyo Comic-Con in December 2018. Before Tokyo Comic-Con, we were all in the dark. Now, yes, there was a nice little flashlight that gave us a glimpse of what was to come. That was the SDCC Godzilla King of the Monsters teaser trailer, and that's a fantastic trailer. We were all pretty freaking hype about that, for sure. It gave us a good hint at where the movie was heading and where the future of the MonsterVerse was going, but it was still an age of the unknown. In fact, the true age of the unknown, I would say, for the MonsterVerse, it was before SDCC. Godzilla's fate was a total mystery. I've been watching a lot of my old videos ever since I've hit 100,000 subscribers, and I totally forgot it was such a prevalent thought online in 2016 2016 and 2017 that Godzilla 2 would just straight up be canceled. They would cancel Godzilla 2 because Gareth Edwards left. A lot of people also thought that maybe they're just gonna go with a straight up reboot of the MonsterVerse. You know, Kong Skull Island kicked off a sort of new era of the MonsterVerse, and maybe Godzilla King of the Monsters was gonna be totally different. Like, Godzilla would have a radical redesign and the tone would totally shift, and it would be a wildly different story and universe than the one that Gareth Edwards had set up. And some of Gareth Edwards' diehards might feel that's exactly what happened. I think the rest of us realize it just absolutely isn't. Godzilla King of the Monsters opened up and expanded upon the tone and ideas of Godzilla 2014, really more of Kong Skull Island, which was jumping off from 2014. But for many of us, especially those of us who remember Kong Skull Island's a middle step, it really was a gradual progression to get to King of the Monsters. There was also one thing that was just cooler than all else, and it was that we had no idea what to think of this film. All we really knew was that it was adapting some of the most iconic Toho kaiju of all time. That's all we knew. We didn't know what the film was gonna be. We didn't know what inspirations it was gonna take. A lot of us thought it might be a straight up remake of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Like, we had no clue what to expect. We certainly didn't know that it was gonna be a world full of titans with a hollow earth full of magic and mystery. After Tokyo Comic-Con, I would say we were no longer in the dark. Instead, we were given a bunch of pieces to the puzzle, and all we had to do was wait to see how they fit together. By Tokyo Comic-Con, we figured out what Godzilla King of the Monsters truly was, and that gave us a good look at where the MonsterVerse was heading. The age of questioning what the MonsterVerse was going to become, I think, ended that day. Godzilla King of the Monsters is truly the film that determined what the MonsterVerse is. It was up to Godzilla King of the Monsters to decide if Kong Skull Island was going to be a wacky outlier in the broader scope of the MonsterVerse, what the rules moving forward were going to be, and what was supposed to be built upon in the future. Now, of course, Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla Kong the New Empire basically said, "What lore?" and made up their own stories, but they took the exact same world of the MonsterVerse and just jumped off from there. They amped everything up to a 50, but they still did jump off from the world of King of the Monsters. Godzilla King of the Monsters is also the movie that created the strongest lore. It chose what to build upon from the previous films and what to move away from. It chose what the world would be, what tone should be expanded upon, and paved the way for Godzilla vs. Kong. Without King of the Monsters, you simply could not get to Godzilla vs. Kong. It would come completely out of left field. It also had double the hype behind it because we weren't just excited about Godzilla King of the Monsters, we were also hyped about Godzilla vs. Kong, which was just on the horizon. Especially when you remember that Godzilla vs. Kong was supposed to come out less than a year after King of the Monsters. It was just a time period of unparalleled hype in the online fan base. The MonsterVerse had 5 years to build and establish a fan base, half a decade to build up what was to come. It was also coming off the back of a fan favorite Toho Godzilla movie with Shin Godzilla, which we were told would have some inspiration and influence on the new King of the Monsters movie, and an amazing reintroduction to King Kong, which showed that Kong can be so much more than just the Beauty and the Beast character he started as. Tokyo Comic-Con in particular was so awesome because we had so much. We ate really well. We had an exciting Godzilla design which was only glimpsed in the SDCC trailer for Godzilla King of the Monsters, but we needed clarification on what that thing was gonna be. We had Toho Kaiju getting their first ever Hollywood reimaginings with big budgets, the first adaptations of them in CGI, the first reveal of their new American designs, and their first appearance in decades. We also had the Monarch website, which was this wonderful ongoing interactive experience offering day-to-day hype. It kept us checking in and it kept us excited. Through this, we would get small reveals about the kaiju, their origins, the lore of the universe, their abilities. All of this was teased. Subtle things like the uncovering of images of Rodan in his slumber, or Mothra's god rays, or teasers about what Jonah Allen had been up to before the movie. Monarch's Twitter was also using real-world scientific events to build up the lore of the MonsterVerse and keep us engaged and excited. All the while, this is something that I think is incredibly underrated, and I really miss this. Michael Dougherty was right there with us the entire time, one of the fans. Michael Dougherty is the only MonsterVerse director who had this level of interaction with the fans on Twitter, teasing things about the new movie through Bible verses or mythological references, keeping us guessing, keeping us speculating. His tweets build up a certain type of hype. He also liked certain tweets, which would hint to where the movie could be heading. Being part of the community built a really core fan base around Michael Dougherty, and that's why you see Dougherty have such a strong fan base to this day, and I don't think the other MonsterVerse directors really have that. And it's not because they aren't great directors, it's because they weren't with us. All of this was fantastic for encouraging speculation and celebrating the films online, generating buzz, and this is what led to Tokyo Comic-Con, which was this incredibly special moment for me and so many others. It was sort of a halfway point, a turning point in the King of the Monsters marketing. We were like halfway between the SDCC trailer and the movie, and from here, this is where the marketing really kicked into high gear with a massive wave of hype and marketing leading into the movie itself. Tokyo Comic-Con was also not short on reveals. We had so much. We got the new Godzilla statue, giving us a full 360 look at Godzilla's design for the King of the Monsters movies with texture and beautiful details. We got a panel with Michael Dougherty teasing Easter eggs and creating an instant rewatchability factor for King of the Monsters before it had even released, and encouraging us to do speculation and breakdowns on the trailers. The intentionality behind so many Easter eggs in that film is another reason why I think so many of us fans look at it as this wonderful moment in Godzilla history, and the other MonsterVerse films don't have that. Maybe it was a little too fan service heavy for you, but not for me. We also got early concept art, which showcased some of the amazing set pieces in the final film without revealing images from them or spoiling the final designs of the monsters. We got confirmation that Godzilla and Mothra's themes from the Toho films would be returning as well, which was incredibly exciting, and keen viewers also were able to pick up on the fact that Bear McCreary's Godzilla theme, it aired for the first time ever to the public at Tokyo Comic-Con, playing at the Godzilla booth. This was the first time we ever got to hear it. We also got not a trailer 2, which many of us thought we would, but a teaser for trailer 2, which played and then gave us an estimated trailer 2 date, allowing the party and the hype to continue for around a week after Tokyo Comic-Con, while still giving us a lot to bite into. Finally, we got the reveal of the SH Monster Arts figures for Godzilla King of the Monsters. Not only was it incredibly exciting to know we were getting figures of these characters, especially after 2014 was incredibly lacking on figures at the time, this also let us see the full kaiju and their full designs without actually giving us the final designs. Like, we didn't get the designs from the movies spoiled, but we did get a pretty good indication of what they would look like. This allowed us to be excited about their designs while still generating hype around the footage teasing them in the trailers, as every single little glimpse we got of them in the trailers was enough for us to screenshot and bite onto to try and analyze more details of these designs that we didn't notice before. It truly is amazing and disappointing to me in retrospect that Godzilla King of the Monsters was a box office underperformer, because it had so much set up for it. All this online hype and publicity, it just was such an exciting moment for the fans, but I'll tell you why it didn't succeed to the degree that we all thought it would. It's because it was a victim of time. It's a thing that every single movie could be a victim of. Every movie, no matter how good it is a victim of the release date it has, and Godzilla King of the Monsters knows this better than most movies, and in fact it might be poetically fitting, as one of Michael Dougherty's biggest inspirations was the movie The Thing from 1982, directed by John Carpenter, another movie that is beloved today, but it was a movie that did not do particularly well at the box office simply because of its release date being at a suboptimal time. It's important to remember that 2019 was the most packed year in box office history out of the entire history of cinema. Ever. No year has ever even come slightly close to this, by the way. We were off the back of $2 billion Marvel movies, one that made nearly $3 billion and was actively soaking up all of the box office at the time King of the Monsters came out. It was the highest grossing film ever made with unparalleled levels of hype behind it. We were also competing against $2 billion Disney live action movies, with yet another $1 billion Marvel movie and a Disney animated movie shortly behind King of the Monsters. There were also major competing adventure films and franchises in a similar marketplace to Godzilla King of the Monsters, films like Jumanji 2 and Hobbs and Shaw, all within just a few months. Sometimes I think it's truly impressive that Godzilla did as well as he did, given that Godzilla's got a dedicated fan base, but a very small one. Godzilla's a bit of an underdog. After Godzilla King of the Monsters, the MonsterVerse became what it is. The mystery of what could be ended, and instead we were given what is. The hype, I would say, stagnated through sloppy lore developments, a loss of interest in online interactions both from the studio and in some ways the fans, and simply no plan for the future to get us hyped about what's to come. But that doesn't change the fact that we will always have Tokyo Comic-Con 2018, and we will always have the era of Godzilla King of the Monsters and the unparalleled MonsterVerse Mania that went along with it in our minds and memories and online, documented forever. I hope you enjoyed this little retrospective look back. If you want more stuff like this, I'd love to do it. It was so much fun. What were your thoughts on MonsterVerse Mania and of this special little moment in Godzilla history. I'm honestly less interested in what you thought of Godzilla King of the Monsters in this video and more interested what you thought of the build up to it. Comment below and let me know. They will always be some of the most core memories for me. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I am able to continue to make videos like this for you. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. If that's not your thing, please consider joining as a channel member. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man out.